There's loads to kind of catch up on, because while I've been doing this September challenge, my focus obviously has been the self-sufficiency, the self-sufficient meals, and very much my vlogging has been all based around that. So let me just turn this down. That's better. So yeah, there hasn't been many videos of me just sort of general stuff. So this is a great format for me to get you guys all caught up. So thanks ever so much for joining me. I'm just looking down here because I've got another screen I can see comments and stuff on as they come in. So yeah, it's been far too long. So loads has happened. We've moved Sid back in with the girls. So he is so much happier now. And that's because we're coming towards the end of milking season and breeding time is upon us. So we'll have some more baby goats in the spring. We've also got a date that we're moving out. We're going to be moving from here in Easter next year, the school Easter holidays. That's going to be when we're moving. Hi, Jeff and Deb. Great to see you here. So glad you could join me. And it'd be interesting to see how many people make it live, actually, because we're out of practice, aren't we? We're out of the habit of doing it. So be lovely if we get a few people here. We'll have to just wait and see. But yeah, like I said, we're moving at Easter. We kind of know where we're going. Oh, it's nice to be back as well, Deb. Hi, Elliot Hughes. So glad you could join me, mate. Yeah, so we know where we're moving, we think. And what I'm going to do, I'm not really going to talk a lot about that today because there's still a lot. Hi, Robert Negri. Am I pronouncing that right? Negri? So glad you could join me. Yeah, so we know where we're moving. We know what's going to happen now, we think. But I'm not going to talk very much about that today, if you don't mind, because it's still very, very new, all of these ideas. We're still, coming to terms with it all, not sure what the plan is, but I think it's going to be exciting times for the channel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on that kind of stuff in October. I'm going to get this September challenge finished and out the way. And then we'll talk more about that kind of stuff in October. So just a few hellos. Hi, Rachel Hellier. Hi, Shannon Ward. And hi, Mark Parnaby and the rest of the Parnabys. So glad you could join us. Shannon's saying, forget the coffee withdrawals. What about the live stream withdrawals? Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? And talking about coffee, I haven't really missed it. It's mental how little I've missed it. I'm really good. Without it, I don't really think about it at all now. So that's great. What's going to be interesting, and something that I think will be the focus of my attention in probably the last week of September, will be what I'm going to sort of carry forward out of this month. Because it would be great to think, in an ideal world, if I could go into the future and, stay off the caffeine, stay off the coffee. And those are things they're decisions that I think the time to make those decisions are around the last week of September and the first week of October. So I don't really have a lot to say about that because I haven't thought about it a great deal yet, beyond the fact that I know it is a decision. It is something that I'm thinking about that's going to be happening in the future, is making those choices, because it's been a real roller coaster. It's been really interesting. It's been a real introspective couple of weeks, and I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot about us here and what we're doing and our self-sufficiency. And I'm really quite surprised by how close we are, because so many of the meals that I'm eating, my wife made this point earlier, and it reflects on another point actually that some viewers have made when they're asking, is the rest of my family doing this? Are they planning on joining me doing it in the future? What's the plan with that? My wife was saying that really they already are with the big stuff, so with the big stuff, we're kind of already there. And, things like meat, potatoes, vegetables, the sourdough, my family are all there, but it's the small stuff around the periphery. that's the challenge. That's what actually makes it really, really difficult. You know, it is the seasonings and the snacks if you're leaving the house. But in terms of like the meals, we're pretty much already there. And Jackie was talking to me just about an hour ago about that, and how, you know, one of the days I was like, well, I'm just going to have scrambled egg on toast. And for us, that's kind of like something we can just take for granted. But that's not because it's easy. If you are completely new to this world and the idea of raising your own food and taking ownership of where your food comes from, the idea of a lot of the things that for us are just taken for granted are really, really hard. You know, it's a lot of work to generate the amount of eggs we generate here. You know, we've got to feed the animals, we've got to build the animal housing, we've got to maintain it, we've got to move them, we've got to constantly check on them, you know, twice a day, water, all those kinds of things. And these are just things that we're already doing, and we've been doing them for so long we don't think about them anymore. So we take that for granted. Eggs are just something that's always available in this house, and they're completely self-sufficient. We take that for granted. And the same applies to a lesser degree with sourdough. You know, the fact that we're maintaining a sourdough starter and that I'm baking 4 loaves of bread every Saturday, and, you know, we're freezing and defrosting and having that there on hand. These are all things that we're in the habit of doing. Therefore, we have sourdough available. And, you know, if you're new to it and you suddenly decide, okay, I want self-sufficient egg on toast, and the first thing you've got to go out and do is buy some chickens and start making your own sourdough starter, you know, you're a week or more away from being able to get any of those things. So it's not because my family aren't interested in being self-sufficient. You know, they're on board with me with the big picture stuff. And when we eat meals, you know, the meat 9 times out of 10 is something we've raised ourselves. The vegetables 9.9 times out of 10, they're all things we've raised ourselves. If it's potatoes, probably 80% of the time throughout the year, they're potatoes we've raised ourselves. And, you know, the same with the sourdough. It's always sourdough we've made ourselves. And they're already doing it, you know. So 90% of my family's eating in September is already self-sufficient. It's that last 10%. It's things like, as I've mentioned, look at my hair. I just can't control it. I'm sorry. But there's lots of things around that periphery in that 10%. Things like drinks that I've mentioned so many times that do change and make it more difficult. And another thing Jackie was saying is how, you know, my children go to school, and it's not really fair to deprive them of the things that are quite normal to their peer group. And, you know, not being able to have a packet of crisps or whatever it might be isn't necessarily very fair when it comes to their, you know, their schooling and things like that. Hi, William Dillon. So glad you could make it as well. And I am aware, Shannon, that the crazy hair is a staple of the channel. A little bit less so lately, though. I've been trying my best. So I've got a question for you guys, and I want you to really, really think it through before you answer, because there might well be a knee-jerk reaction one way or another, but it's basically it's a kind of a yes or no question, but it's very, very nuanced, and it's something I'm debating myself, and I haven't decided where I am yet. And that is that the simple question, and don't answer it yet until I've explained. The simple question is, am I allowed to eat ham? Now, the reason I ask that is because all of the ham I have was cured using shop-bought curing salts. Now, you don't use very much of them. I have ham and bacon that I've cured using other methods, using the saturation method, where you kind of... So there's 2 methods. There's the equilibrium method and then what I call the saturation method. The saturation method is you just pack the whole thing in salt and sugar. And the equilibrium method is you use the tiniest amount of salt and you kind of vacuum seal it, and you don't take it out until the right number of days have passed and all that salt has been taken up, and you use exactly the amount of salt that you would need, no more. So it kind of does it almost like sous vide. Once that salt's gone in, it can't get any more saltier. Whereas with the saturation method, if you left it longer, it would get more and more salty. So my question is, can I eat that ham? Because that wasn't curing salts that I made. Now, my initial inclination is no, and I'm very comfortable either way. I don't need the ham necessarily, but the question is more this. Are the curing salts an ingredient, or are they a tool? So, for instance, I also have purchased a dehydrator, which is enabling me to do this challenge. You know, we purchased electricity that runs our freezers that allows me to do this challenge. If you're canning stuff, you're going to be buying consumables, the lids and things. So my question is, do curing salts count as a sort of a sundry item, or do they count as an ingredient? Think about that and let me know. And I'm not going to be making a decision today. It's something I've been pondering for a few days. And in the build up to this challenge, I kind of always thought that I'd be eating ham at lunchtimes and stuff, but I've stayed away from it thus far for that very reason. And it's not a quandary that I'm at the point that I've solved yet. I'm still considering it one way or another. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts. Elliot Hughes says, eat the ham. I mean, the other side to this is I kind of thought you guys would probably err on that side because you want to support me, and that's awesome. But I want you to temper your feelings if they're ones of, eat the ham because that's what I want to do. Temper it with the actual, a non-emotional breakdown of the question, because that's where I want to come at it from. Yeah, I've set these rules for myself, and I really want to stick to them. Shannon Ward says, I think if I was mean, I'd say no ham. Yeah, again, it's not about mean. It's about interpretation of the rules that I've set myself, and I really want to stick with them. Brewing yeast has the same problem. Absolutely, Vicky. And that's one of the amazing things about sourdough. It's one of the things that allows me to have bread, is because I don't need yeast. I'm not buying yeast or anything else. It's all, the only ingredient is flour, which is just an absolute godsend. So talking about the challenge in general, we'll come back to the ham, but please do let me know as you go. Let me know what you think. So I think in terms of the challenge, I think it's going really, really well. There's been a couple of minor hiccups. I struggled right at the start with drinks. I really didn't want all that water, but I'm definitely over that bridge now. That's behind me. Still don't love drinking water, but I think I'm there. I don't think about it anymore. There was obviously the stroganoff episode, which we're probably all familiar with. That didn't go well. And then there was also the time I ran out of butter. But all those things behind me, I think, it's going really well. And I'm looking at the rest of the month, and there's so many things that I want to do and try and share with you. I'm going to, later on today, in fact, I've got the ingredients on the side over there. I'm going to be making a coleslaw, and I'm going to be making it, or a take on a coleslaw. And I'm going to be making it with, instead of mayonnaise, which I can't make, I'm going to be making a yogurt, but almost like if you imagine creme fraiche instead of yogurt. So imagine you had creme fraiche. I'm going to add some garlic and some chives to that, and I'm going to use that instead of mayonnaise to make a coleslaw. And obviously it's not creme fraiche, it's yogurt, but that's the way I'm going. So I want to do that. I've got crayfish yet to go. I've got some tomatoes in the freezer, not many, and that's another question I'm going to ask you about in a bit, so I'll get to that. So tomatoes. I've still got loads of flavors that I haven't yet even started working with, and I'm really excited to do. A cheese sauce. I haven't made a cheese sauce. So let's get through these. Jeff and Deb Shipton. I think as a method of preservation, it's not a flavor enhancer and therefore could be allowable. Elliot Hughes agrees, as does Shannon Ward. Robert Negri, as a formulator of building products, my opinion is that curing salt is a necessary additive or tool to achieve the end product. Otherwise, your choices are dried jerky or dried jerky. Guido Fawkes. Hey Guido, eat the ham. If you drink water from the tap, then no difference unless you only use and drink rainwater. Fair. Rachel Hellier, yes, agree with Deb on this. Everyone seems to agree. Well, there you go. Okay, I'm good to go eating the ham. Well, okay, perfect. That opens up a whole new range of flavors for me, which thus far I haven't played with this month. So yeah, in terms of like the challenge going forward, I think it's going to be great. It's going to be easy is the wrong word, because what the struggles are, trying to replicate some of the flavors that I really enjoy, as you've seen, with the stroganoff. But then I did it with the griot, and it was amazing, and I really love that process. I'm a little bit of a an experimenter anyway, as you guys know. I'm very, very comfortable making mistakes. The downside of that is that mistakes are harder to bounce back from this month. So if I make a dish that's unappetizing, unappealing, I can't just quickly go and switch and stick a pizza in the oven, for example. So the downs are much harder. They're much harder, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. And that's definitely for me a price that I'm happy to pay in order to do all these things. And as Jeff and Deb Shipton just wrote, you're in danger of running out of time in September to try all these things. Yeah, I think it's going to be okay. I think I'm going to get them all in, but we'll see. But what a result. And I said right at the beginning that I don't want this to be a month of me complaining about food, a month of me struggling to enjoy food. I want it to be a celebration of self-sufficiency. And I think, for the most part, that is what it is, and that's what it's turning into. And I'm really happy about that. I'm really thrilled about that. And as I was saying, going forward, I think that this challenge, this September challenge, is going to be a staple. I think I'm going to do it every year, and we'll mix it up. And, I think maybe we'll get to a point where I'm not even bartering for anything. That would be amazing. That would be the real goal. That would be just absolutely fantastic. And to be perfectly honest, the only thing really, if my bees had come through for me this year, the one ingredient that I would be bartering for is flour. So I think that's amazing. I'm really quite surprised. I've surprised myself this month, the range of food I'm eating with just that one ingredient that I can't produce myself. And yeah, I think that's amazing. Shannon says the psychology behind everything is so interesting. You're just so used to the ease of everything, and your taste buds are adjusting physiologically, but psychologically there's a lot too. And that's 100% right. 100% right. But that, as much as the lows are low, the highs are high as well. When I get a success like that, pork griot was just phenomenal. And when I sat down to eat it, I said to Jackie, this might be the best thing I've ever eaten that I've made myself, or the thing I've enjoyed the most. And of course, that comes from that feeling of achievement, Can you glean heads of wheat from the sides of harvested fields? I don't know. That's a great idea, Vicky. It's definitely worth thinking about. Just imagine how well you'll do next year with what you've learnt this year, Guido Fawkes. Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things I'll probably do if I do it next year is I might add a few stipulations. So one of the things I've toyed with is the idea of, adding water, so that I have to use rainwater harvesting or filtering and boiling river water or whatever. I like the idea of doing that, but not out of some, desire to wear a hair shirt, but just because I'm interested in that kind of thing anyway. That kind of thing excites me, and gets my gets my juices going. And so I'm definitely up to that. So up for that. And I think there's some other things as well. No bartering would be another addition I could add to it. But generally, I think I'm really surprised by the diversity of food that I'm eating and the quality of food that I'm eating thus far. I think it's just been absolutely amazing. I'm so happy with it. Hi, Gardening with Man has no names. Hi, Jenny Nichols. So glad you both could make it. So here we go. Yeah, so Robert Negri just said a stocked fish pond in 2022. Yeah, so For those of you who are new to my channel, you may not know, but we are basically being evicted from this amazing place. And so our future is very much up in the air. I'm gonna have lots of announcements about that in October. And in October, we're gonna be talking about where we're going. Excuse me, I got a really itchy nose. We're going to be talking about where we're going, what our plans are. We've got really exciting plans and they're going to be really good for the channel, really exciting stuff. Going to bring you with us every step of the way. But it does mean that a lot of the infrastructure type projects, things like fish ponds, are 100% on hold for now at least. So we'll have to see where we land insofar as land and what we have available to us in the short-term future. So that's going to very much depend on, all sorts of financial considerations, and that'll have a knock-on effect as to what we're able to do. But I think it's going to set me up nicely for next September's challenge. I think it's just going to be, a different world. We're not going to have a lot of the long-term run-up that we've had here. So again, if you're new to my channel, we've only been doing this. We've only been plugged into this way of living for 3 years. That's it. Before then, we bought 100% of our food from the supermarkets. We didn't raise any of our own food. Well, occasionally we'd have a few eggs. That was all. We used to keep pet chickens. That's it. But we've had 3 years of building up to this, and that's how we've ended up with a freezer full of pork and, milking goats and all those kinds of things. So it's quite possible we'll have to take a step back and not have infrastructure to do some of the things that we're currently doing, but we just don't know. It's too early to say. While I've got you all here, the Self-Sufficient Hub Hive Mind, I've got a couple of other questions for you, a couple of other requests. One is for tomatoes. Now, I have got a small pot, probably about that much, of sun-dried or dehydrated rather cherry tomatoes, and I have got a small bag about that big of frozen regular tomatoes. That's it. That's all I've got. Now I want to get the absolute most bang for buck out of those ingredients because they're all I've got. As you all know, here in the UK we have suffered with blight this year. Tomato blight, potato blight, and everybody that's been growing tomatoes outside has been hit. A lot of people who've been growing tomatoes inside have also been hit. My tomatoes in the polytunnel all succumbed, and that's all we have. So I would love it if that hadn't happened, this challenge would be even better because I would be making loads of tomato sauces for things like pastas and all those kinds of things. So I'd love to know your thoughts on how I can best use those ingredients. I've looked at rehydrating the cherry tomatoes, so that's on the table, or I could use them as they are, but what I really want to do is use those tomato flavors and not let them go to waste. So I'm thinking, there's loads of things that I'd love to do. I can make some sourdough pizza bases and then use some tomatoes to make a sort of tomato sauce for those. I don't know if that's the best way of getting the most from that ingredient or not. I think from what I've got in the freezer, I think I can probably make one small-ish, by my standards, tomato sauce, enough for maybe 2 meals, or maybe one pasta meal and a pizza or something like that. But I'm not sure the best way of using the sun-dried cherry tomato, so let me know if you've got any thoughts. Mix with courgettes, Jenny Nichols says. Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to pasta sauces, using courgettes to bulk them out as a kind of ratatouille style ragu type sauce, I think, yeah, definitely that's definitely gonna work. Shannon Ward says, you've inspired me to try and go fully self-sufficient with my veggies and eggs for a period of time, maybe in March next year. Shannon, obviously in the southern hemisphere, so March is kind of equivalent to September, I think. So yeah, sounds great, Shannon, and I'm 100% behind you there, and I hope you can do it. Jeff and Deb Shipton, we are on rainwater only here, a couple of massive tanks, and it's great stuff. Long term, whether this happens within the next 2 years or not, I don't know, but within the next 5 years, I think it's really realistically possible that we could be living completely off grid with just rainwater harvesting, solar power, and air source heat pumps and all those things. And that's something I want to do. That's something I want to build. So hopefully that's in our future as well. Gardening with Manners, no names, blight free here still, thanks to aspirin spraying the bushes to boost the plant's immune system. Yeah, you mentioned that before, gardening, and I hope that carries on working for you guys out there. That's fantastic. He goes on to say, I would do a focaccia bread with tomato, cheese and herbs and salt. Sorry, there's a couple of typos there. I'm struggling to read that. But yeah, a focaccia type bread. For me, I'm thinking like, a pizza dough / pita bread type bread. And yeah, tomato cubes, cheese and herbs. Yeah. So, there's loads of different things. And it's just a case of making sure that I squeeze out every last ounce of the goodness and flavour from those tomatoes. It's not sad at all, Shannon. Don't you worry about it. So what I'm doing this afternoon on a similar topic, I've mentioned that we're going to be making some coleslaw, so that's something brand new. I'm also going to be making, there's loads of things that I'm making this month that I'd never have really been forced to try before. So I'm going to be making Scotch eggs, hopefully, not this afternoon, but at some point. What that comes down to is whether or not I find our pork mince, our minced pork, our sausage meat, in the freezers, because we've got 4 freezers at the moment, all rammed, and it's a real problem if I'm going for anything specific, because generally what I do, I just pick up the lid of the chest freezer and I grab a couple of joints, whatever's closest to me, put them in the fridge to defrost, and that's my next week's worth of meat, pork meat. And I don't tend to go delving through, but if I can find some sausage meat, I'm going to make some Scotch eggs. Yeah, what a problem to have indeed, Shannon. I'm very blessed. And the other thing I need for that, which I don't have at the moment, is some breadcrumbs. So I'm going to be making some breadcrumbs, because not only am I going to make enough to freeze so that I can use them for some other things, but also what I'm going to be making this afternoon, first time ever, and I can't believe I've never made it before, is some sage and onion stuffing. Now, I don't know if it's a worldwide phenomenon, but here in the UK, we have roast dinners, and when we say a roast dinner, we mean something quite specific here in the UK. It would be a roasted joint of meat, and that can be anything, chicken, pork, beef, whatever. And we would have with it roasted potatoes, loads of veg, and then if we're having chicken, we would usually have something called stuffing. I'm assuming it's around the world, but I don't know. And sage and onion stuffing is like the staple here in the UK. And we've always used a packet stuffing mix. They're so cheap and really taste great. I can't remember ever even trying to make, a proper stuffing from scratch, which I don't know why, but I'm doing that this afternoon. I'm having my first go at sage and onion stuffing. And for me personally, when I eat a roast dinner, the stuffing, I have it with every type of roast. If we're cooking a roast dinner here, if you go out to eat in a restaurant or a pub, a roast dinner, if it's got chicken, it'll have stuffing. Otherwise, it probably won't. We have stuffing with every roast dinner. We just love the stuff. And traditionally, it would have been used to stuff the bird, but we just serve it separately. Well, I'm going to be making some of that, and I'm really, really looking forward to trying it, actually, and seeing how it compares to the shop-bought stuff, which, again, is very, very cheap, really easy to make, tastes great, and it'd be interesting to see how this compares. So it's things that kind of highlights the differences between living sort of 70%, 60% self-sufficient, where you're providing most of your meat, most of your vegetables, and then going from there to 100, or from going from there to 90, I suppose, would be the gap within which you're then making homemade stuffing from stuff that you've produced yourself. It's not just about the cooking, it's about producing the raw ingredients. That's the link that kind of joins everything together and makes this challenge a challenge. Because, if it was just cooking from scratch, well, that would be simple for me and a pleasure and something I'd enjoy. and I'm enjoying it as it is, don't get me wrong. So possibly make a thinner marinara sauce and just use it as a dip for your pizza dough. Pita could last longer than pouring it. Love that idea, William. A tomato soup would be delicious. Well, yeah, it would, but I just don't think that would be the best way of making my tomatoes go really far. I'd probably make one tomato soup and then that's it, they're done. Same with focaccia bread to dip, or focaccia, I think it's called, isn't it? I'm terrible with my pronunciations of Italian words, as long-time listeners will know. Remember the prosciutto? In Australia, what about Yorkshire puddings? Yeah, absolutely. Yorkshire puddings are an absolute, beast of an addition to a roast dinner, and we have them all the time. And that's something we already do self-sufficiently, because they're basically a batter, and we obviously go through batter, and we have batter regularly. I haven't got any in the fridge at the moment, but I've made one or two batches since this challenge started, and it's basically the same as my pancake mix. So I'll make some batter up, and then I'll use that over a few days for pancakes. So another thing that I want to do, again, that I haven't done yet, is make some onion rings. So some battered onion rings, and then fry them. That's going to be amazing. So batter is really, really versatile. So you can use it for coating things and then frying them or baking them, but then you can also use it for pancakes and Yorkshire puddings. And I mentioned earlier in the month, another thing that I'm going to make, again, this is dependent on me finding that sausage meat, is I'm going to make a dish called Toad in the Hole. And I think this is a UK dish, but it's basically sausages in a giant Yorkshire pudding. And I can do that with my sausage meat, obviously. And that's a dish in itself. That with some gravy, some vegetables, boom, you're done. So yeah, I think I'll definitely be getting back on the batter train in the next few days, make some up. And again, these are all things that once you're in the habit of doing them and you've got these things to hand in the fridge, it opens up a world of choice with your food, and not just in flavor, but in cooking techniques. Battering and frying is a whole different cooking technique. So yeah, that's something else, and will definitely be on the list. So, onion rings, stuffing balls, this coleslaw, crayfish, roast chicken. There's so much that we haven't even started with yet this month. Where are we here? Homemade stuffing is next level. Extra stale bread is key. Well, that's really interesting, William, because I did check out a little recipe, and it said that you should not use... No, it didn't say you shouldn't use stale bread. It said you shouldn't use dried breadcrumbs. So, yeah, okay, great. Well, we've quite often got a little bit of stale bread at, the edges of the sourdough. So, yeah, that should be easy for us to come across. Shannon, I love stuffing, or a nice nut roast, Guido. Yeah, a nut roast is something I've never, ever, ever, ever considered. Never looked at, don't know anything about. So that's something I'll have to have a look at. I'll have to do a bit of research. I don't even know what it is, if I'm honest. We do have nuts. I can forage nuts as well. Stuffing staples from my herb/veggie garden: Russian sage, leeks, and thyme. That sounds amazing. Hadn't thought of using leeks. We're going to use loads of sage. I use thyme quite a lot, so we've got lots of that. And oh yeah, the idea of putting leeks in your stuffing, that sounds absolutely phenomenal. I think I'll go with a standard sage and onion stuffing today, but then I'll definitely, if it works out, I'll do a leek one later in the month. That sounds amazing. Do you have peppers? Yes, I do have peppers. Don't have masses of peppers, but I do have some. And then a spicy tomato sauce. Yeah, 100%. So every tomato sauce I ever make, if it's for me, will be spicy. There's not much I don't enjoy more with some chilies in, with some spice. So yeah, whatever I do with my tomato sauce, it will 100% be spicy. That's a fact. And that would be whether I'm using it for a pizza base or a pasta sauce or whatever it might be. So my wife just chipped in. He loves leeks. Yes, I do. Got about 30 big pepper bushes turning colour now. Lucky. We don't have that many. We've got about 6 or 7. We do have, though, quite a lot of dried chili from previous seasons. We have gluts here, and we were okay last year, but the year before we grew so many, far too many. So I've still got quite a lot of dried chili from then. So yeah, I just think chili with tomatoes, personally, for me, I would never cook for myself with tomatoes and not add chilies to it. I can't think of a dish that I would. You know, if I'm, unless it's like, you know, I'm having tomatoes in a salad or something, little cherry tomatoes in a salad, then maybe not. But yeah, like you say, they go hand in hand with one another. Buried right in the middle of this live chat, I've just got something I wanted to share with you guys as well, something about the channel. And that is, as it starts to kind of grow, and it's growing slowly, I'm getting alerts for messages on the channel all the time through lots of different ways. And sometimes I'm going in and replying to messages, and I find one through sort of like a back door. There's lots of different ways I can access the comments to reply to them. And I'll find a message that's like a week old that I hadn't even noticed or missed, or in my head, not even been alerted of. So if you leave me a comment and I don't get back to you, I do apologize. And it's just because I've somehow managed to miss it. It's fallen through the net. So don't take it personally. It doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the comment or I didn't want to, you know, agree with it or whatever. It just means that it slipped through the net. As you know, the channel, it's not massive, I'm aware of this, but you know, as it starts to grow and I've got such fantastic support, I've got the best subscribers in the whole world. You're really good at leaving me loads of comments. Please don't stop doing that. But you know, as that grows, it's more and more difficult for me to make sure that I don't miss one to reply to, which is what I like to do. So there's that. While we're on the topic of the channel, while we're still live here, could you please just press that like button? I don't know what my dogs are barking at. Maybe someone's arrived at the front door. But yeah, make sure you press that like button while we're still going here. So that's, I think, brought you up to speed on where I am with the challenge and where I am mentally with it all. I'm in a really good place. I'm drinking a little bit too much honey and milk because I can't, it's not sustainable. I'm going to have to rein that in still. I don't have enough honey to get me to the end of the month if I carry on as I am. But other than that, I think I've cracked it. Another thing that's just occurred to me is coming into this, I was really concerned about desserts. That, you know, I was really focused and almost like over-focused on custard for about 2 weeks. And what am I going to do about custard? But with the honey and milk, I'm just not having desserts. And that's worked out fine for me. I don't miss them either. So that was a big area that I thought was going to be a real difficult one for me to deal with. And it just hasn't worked. So how do you mix honey and milk? I usually just fill a bottle with cold water and honey and then shake it like crazy. Yeah, well, what I do when I milk the goats and I bring the goat's milk in, it's in a big stainless steel bucket. And then what I tend to do is I have to decant that and strain it into measuring jugs that have got a spout on, which allow me to then fill up bottles like this. That's not milk and honey in there. That's some pear juice I've just finished. So what I tend to do is if I've got a 2 litre jug, that'll be almost full. And then I will add about 2 tablespoons of honey to that, stir it, and then pour it into my bottles. It's amazing. One of the amazing things about it is how readily the honey gets taken up by the milk. You'd think it would kind of not want to mix, but that's not the case at all. It really mixes super easy, which is something I really am stunned by every time I do it. I just stir it up and it mixes in really well. So yeah, that's how I'm doing it. I had lots of questions about the milk and honey. You know, that's how I'm doing it. Basically, 1 tablespoon will do just under 1 litre. I was putting more in at the start. I'm gradually reducing that. And it's really filling a gap in my diet. But before I did this challenge, I used to drink quite a lot of strawberry milkshake in the evenings with a shop bought, you know, strawberry milkshake powder, whereas this has sort of filled that gap, and I don't miss it at all. Yeah, so that's where we are. Good night, guys. Good night, guys. Early start tomorrow. Great to have the live chats back. That's Jeff and Deb Shipton. See you soon. The milk and honey is like the mushrooms. Don't start them on it. Yeah, no, they are great. Mushrooms and the milk and honey. Yeah, yes, I have. Just given the kids something else honey-based to ask for, Vicky. So I can't remember, Vicky. Are you harvesting honey yet? Are you there? Or I know you're a relatively new beekeeper. Are you harvesting honey this year? That'd be interesting. I wish I was. I wish I was. This time next year, we'll be having lots and lots of our own honey, I'm absolutely sure. So, yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything else to really get you guys caught up on here. So I suppose it's about time to wind it up. If you've got any last minute questions, if you want to get them in the chat, we're probably going to be here another couple of minutes. So I'll try and get to them. But otherwise, I will just, as always, thank you all so much for not only for being here. The fact that I can just put a date in the diary and you guys turn up is really humbling. And I'm so appreciative of all of you for all of your support, all the different ways it comes. I will take this opportunity for those of you who've been following along with my September challenge, and this is the first live stream that you've been to, just to mention the podcast. If you're not aware, we have a podcast as well. I apologize, I didn't release an episode on Friday. This challenge is just very time consuming. So there wasn't an episode on Friday, but generally it's 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. And yeah, come and check us out wherever you get your podcasts. None this year, sadly. They scooped it during the bad weather. Yeah, that makes sense. Vicky, how much of an old fart are you, Carl? I am 44, I think. I might be 43. I have to check with my wife every time. But I'm there or thereabouts. Maybe next year for the honey mark. Yeah, absolutely. See you, Guido. Thank you for joining me. I love that these are back now. Awesome stuff. Me too. Shannon, are you at Broomhill next week, Carl? Yes, I am. Yes, is it next week or the week after? Yeah, no, next week. I am back at Broomhill. That's a young man. Well, we're all young if we feel young. Just harvested 16 kilograms of honey yesterday out of only 1 box. Going to use a lot in milk this year. Good for you, William. See you out there. Are you coming on the course, Jenny? That's awesome. Or are you just in the area? That's awesome. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up now. Oh, brilliant. Fantastic, Jenny. I'll see you there. Great. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up now. Thanks again, guys, for coming. Stay safe. Go out, do all the good things in your garden, and enjoy whatever it is you're doing. Enjoy whatever weather you're getting, and enjoy whatever produce you're eating. See you all soon.